Okay. Let me get my scripts going so you don't see that ugly macro text. There we go. Howdy, y'all. Welcome to my DH guide. Okay. So, we're gonna go over abilities first. There we go. So, abilities first. Blade Dance. Blade Dance, kind of an AoE thing, it helps you dodge for a second. It's really good to use, like, if you know you're gonna get bashed. I guess I'll explain like the playstyle after. So basically, it gives you 100% dodge chance when you use it, and does a little AoE damage. Flare is basically a wall. You use it when you're in trouble. It's a 1-minute cooldown, so you can use it pretty often. It basically prevents your death, especially if you're using a certain talent, which I'll show you after. Chaos Nova is your AoE stun. It just stuns AoE, and it is dispellable, so you want to cover it, or if you don't get the healer with it. Chaos Strike is your main damage ability. It hits for a lot. It's basically what you spam all game, literally. Consume Magic is your kick. It's also ranged, so you can kick from afar. Darkness is darkness. It basically looks like that. Looks like a pool of dark stuff. And darkness will prevent damage. Right now it has a 20% chance to avoid an attack. But you can also spec into it to have it like a 70% chance, I believe, to avoid an attack. So it's basically like Bubble if you're spec'ing into it almost. You can die through it if you do it too low, but it'll save you like 90% of the time if you do it at a good time. I-Beam is your AoE. It also will do something funky if you use a certain talent, which I'll go over after this. It does good AoE damage. You want to use it like against 2 or 3 targets in PvP, really. Sometimes I think you can use it against one, but I don't think it's actually insane against one. Fel Barrage is actually a talent, so Fel Barrage will switch. But Fel Barrage is it's a barrage of Fel, and it shoots a lot of literally missiles of Fel at the person. It's used a good amount of the time. It's one of your main damages. Yeah, one of your main damage cooldowns. Fel Rush is Fel Rush. It makes you it's like it's like Wild Charge. You go far with it. Go forward with it. Rush forward. There you go. You rush forward with Fel Rush. Fel Blade is a talent. Use it most of the time in PvP at least. It generates energy and it gets you back to the target. It also procs a good amount of time. You get procs from using a Demon's Bite, which is honestly a passive half the time too. I'll explain that in the talents. Fury of the Illidari is your artifact. It's basically just it's a meat chopper. It slices people up. Chop, chop, chop. Glide is the thing that Demon Hunters only have, and when you double or triple jump, when you triple jump, it'll open your wings, but you can also bind it here on the right side, and you can just jump and glide, jump and glide. You can jump off this building here, glide, you can jump back, kind of thing. So that's a really fun ability, just passively to use it all the time, just jumping around Dalaran. Imprison is Incap. In PvP it lasts like 3 seconds, I think, maybe 4 seconds if it's unspec'd. You can spec into it, we'll go over that. If it's spec'd into it, it lasts like 4 or 5 seconds and be undispellable. Normally it is dispellable, but if you spec into it, it becomes undispellable and a little longer. It's a pretty short cooldown, so it's pretty good. Metamorphosis, which is your main damage. Don't worry, it's not really 4 minutes in arena if you're using the spec. It's like, your main damage basically. It's your incarnation basically. Spectral Sight is you can see things in rogues. You can see things in stealth like rogues and ferals and stuff. You can get them out of stealth, but you move really slow, so you can get like sapped or opened on before you use it, or if you're trying to get someone out of stealth, you like throw a glaive at them, they can like step sap you still, or like leap pounce you sometimes. Throw glaive is what I just said. Throw glaive, you literally throw a glaive at a person, and if you're a certain spec, it'll dot them and do more damage like I am right now. If you're not a certain spec, it's kind of useless. It's just like a ranged little attack. Vengeful Retreat is their backflip. It's your disengage basically. It'll slow the enemies who you disengage on, and it'll also proc like momentum, which we'll go over in talents as well. That's weird. A lot of dude, I keep doing it the wrong way. There we go. A lot of the Demon Hunter stuff it's based off talents, I guess. Demon Blades, this is an actual attack if you don't talent it, so we'll talk about that in talents. It basically just generates your energy. It gives you a chance to generate energy. Use it most of the time. Double jump, double jump. I don't even know what this passive is. Just damage and movement speed. And, yeah, some PvE stuff you don't need. Alright. So those are the abilities, or like half the abilities, because half of them are depending on spec. So, spec, the first one, Fell Mastery, Fellblade, Blind Fury. Fellblade I don't really use. Some Demon Hunters do use it. I'm pretty sure like Thugonomics, I think, uses it sometimes. I haven't fucked with it for a long time. I basically am Fellblade every fucking arena game. So literally every arena game I'm pretty much Fellblade. It's just overall good. It just gives you energy. It has a chance to proc. It gives you, you can catch back up with them, more mobility, you know. Blind Fury increases your, it makes your eye beam better, basically, but it's not a bit, like in PvE you go this, but in PvP, it's, like, you don't really give too much of an ass about, beam unless you're playing, like, some specific specs or some really specific comps or strats or something like that. So 99% of the time you go Fellblade. Next, Prepared. I've actually never done this, so I have to read it. Okay, well this makes your Vengeful Retreat, your disengage pretty good. You don't want to do that, who cares, doesn't matter. Basically you go between Demonic Appetite and Demon Blades here. Demon Blades is a nice, like, you don't have to do anything. It really turns Demon Hunters into Demon Hunters being one-button classes, basically. Where all you do is hit Chaos Strike most of the time to do damage. It gives you a chance to get Fury, which I use a good amount of the times. I use Demonic Appetite usually versus casters a lot. In some comps where you need to live, like maybe you can use it versus like Jungle or like Red Hunter or something like that. But mainly you kind of want to use it versus if you're playing a certain spec, which is going to be Demon's Bite, Soul Rendering, Demonic. Basically, if you play Demonic, you kind of want to play Demonic Appetite, because if you play Demonic, you play this, which gives you more Fury. We'll go over that later. So, you use this sometimes, and I'll kind of explain to you when as the guide goes on. This tier, always go Bloodlet. It's just the best in this tier. First Blood is really, really nerfed in PvP. It used to be really good and really fun, but it got really nerfed in PvP. Chaos Cleave, well, you actually can, some people do go Chaos Cleave a good amount if you're just pounding, like just pounding people. And you have a slow and all that, and you don't really care about having, you know... You can go Chaos Cleave if you're just cleaving, just doing the max damage kind of thing. It's like a PvE spec, basically. Here we got Netherwalk, Desperate Instincts, and Soul Rendering. Netherwalk is used a lot. All these are used actually a lot. So Netherwalk is used a lot. It's really good for like Chaos Bolts or anything that like one-shots you. Most people use it nearly every game. You can, because it literally immunes you for 5 seconds. You can't do anything, but you know, if an Ebon Bolt's being casted and you Netherwalk, it'll do no damage. It'll make you completely immune. Basically bubble. But you can't use it while you're stunned, so you have to like pre-use it or pre-blur or something like that. So it's really like an O-ship button. Really good button. Desperate Instincts, if you're lazy and stuff, you can always spec this. You can leave it this. It makes your makes your blur a lot stronger. By 50% more, so it makes it 50% blur instead of, what is it, without, like 35%, I'm pretty sure, let's see. Oh, well, I can't respec here, but yeah, it's like 35% or something when it's not spec'd. So when you're Netherwalk, your blur gets a little weaker, but, I mean, you have the oh shit button. And this will automatically trigger blur once you get below 35%, which makes it pretty stupid proof. Like, you can't really fuck it up, but sometimes it does fuck up. Like if you're playing with a druid and he iron rocks you low and it also procs your blur, then it's pretty bad. Soul Rendering, this talent's taken when you're playing Demonic and Demonic Appetite, pretty much. Soul Rendering, it basically makes you heal in meta, but you don't really want to play it if you're not Demonic, because if you're not Demonic, I'll give you a spoiler, I guess. Demonic makes you go meta every time you I-beam. So you use Soul Rendering when you're playing Demonic, because you're going to be in meta a lot more than if you weren't playing Demonic, where you'd just be in meta every 2 minutes for 15 seconds usually. So you only really play Soul Rendering when you're playing Demonic. You only really play Demonic Appetite when you're playing Demonic and Soul Rendering. Well, not really Soul Rendering, but you only really play Demonic Appetite when you're playing Demonic, for the most part. This tier, Momentum, Fell Eruption, and Nemesis. Momentum is, in general, the better talent to pick for the most part. Unless you're running like a really all-in cleave where you're either going to lose or win in 1 minute. Momentum is just good damage overall throughout the game. That's it. It's just, you know, basically you Fell Rush and you get this momentum buff for 4 seconds. Or you Vengeful Retreat, you get this momentum buff. Every movement ability, so Fell Rush and Vengeful Retreat will give you this for 4 seconds or whatever, and you can snapshot your bloodlets and stuff with this buff. So it's really good in general. Just it gives you constant damage rather than like only burst. Fel Eruption, it's not really used. It might be used like if you're training down like a holy priest and you just need to get ward. It's not really used a lot, at least. I don't really see it often. It's a baby stun that does pretty good damage, but I don't think it's worth it over momentum. Nemesis is the games where it's like either 1 minute you win, 1 minute you lose kind of thing. It's you use it in PvE, you put it on a target, it lasts for 30 seconds, increases the damage you do. I think it's like 15% in PvP. Pretty sure it's like 15% in PvP. So it's a little worse than momentum in general, but you don't have to like Fel Rush or anything to keep up your momentum if you have Nemesis, because it's just on the target for 30 seconds. So it gives you like a 30-second burst, like window of burst where you do more damage and you just attack. You don't have to Fel Rush or anything, you just attack and you just do straight more damage. But it's a 2-minute cooldown. I personally don't like playing it. It's pretty boring. It's not that fun. Master of Glaive. So Master of Glaive you want to play when you're playing Bloodlet for the most part, because it gives you 2 charges of Glaive and makes it slow. So when you Bloodlet, it really feels like you're actually bleeding them and they're like dying and they're fucking crippled. You know what I mean? So you use this a lot when you're all the time. I use it all the time when I'm playing Bloodlet. See, I gotta go to a city actually so I can show you guys. Well, I don't have a Hearthstone up yet, but so basically you got this when you go Bloodlet. This talent is actually really good for comps like DHDK, where you basically want to grip stun off cooldown, basically. Kind of every 30 seconds, you kind of want to grip stun. It reduces the cooldowns of Chaos Nova, so and the Fury cost of it, so it doesn't cost any Fury, because Chaos Nova does cost some Fury, 30 Fury. So it costs no Fury, and it's basically like a 30-second cooldown in a way. You want to use that when you're playing like with a DK or something that your team doesn't have a lot of stuns, but you already have a slow on your team. So I'd pretty much say just with a DK, really. Demonic Reborn is something you don't really use in PvP. It resets your... I honestly don't know how this... Like, I'm not a PvEer, but this is really good in PvE. Basically, it constantly like resets your stuff. And if you're playing with Demonic Appetite... Okay, so one thing Demonic Appetite does, it also grants you have a chance to get a Soul Shardment, or Soul Shard, or whatever the fuck. And the Soul Shard will reduce the cooldown of your Chaos Nova. So, basically when you're running Demonic and Demonic Appetite and all this stuff, you're doing a lot of damage, and you're constantly in meta, and you're constantly getting these procs to lower your stun, and all that. So this is like if you're fighting casters, you basically go this Demonic spec. But, you don't really go Demonic Reborn in PvP, so don't really worry about it. So worry about these two. So this if you're going Bloodlet, and if you're not going Bloodlet and you're just kind of doing the Windwalker DK, just cleave everything, grip it in, stun, kill, you want to go this short stun. But you won't have a slow, so keep that in mind. Okay, this last tier is a pretty big tier. It's your big damage. Chaos Blades is literally the one-shot spec. It's basically if you're playing Nemesis, you usually want to play like Chaos Blades and just kind of pound and one-shot Chaos Blades. It increases your damage a huge amount. It's like 18% PvP, I'm pretty sure, instead of 30. But it increases your damage a huge amount, and your damage becomes like magic, pretty much chaos damage. You will chop through people with this ability. It is a 2-minute cooldown though, so this is like a really one-shotty ability. Like, let's say you're playing with like a Moonkin, and you do setups like Root Beam, stun them, and then pop Chaos Blades, Nemesis, get a cooldown. You can just run in 2 minutes. You do the same thing again, get a cooldown. It's a really, really, really strong cooldown. Fel Barrage is the more consistent damage spec. It's you're just consistently barraging them with damage. Barrage is like AoE damage. It shoots like missiles at them. It blows up. It's like homing missiles kind of, and they blow up at them. It does a lot of damage, but it can be interrupted. It's channeled. It does a lot of damage though, and you have a chance to reset the cooldown a little bit. So usually it's like a 40-45 second cooldown, I'd say. It does a lot of damage. In general, it's a pretty safe bet to go. It's just pretty consistent. It does good damage. Pretty consistent, basically. You probably want to spec this like default, and then if you're going all in, spec Chaos Blades or spec Demonic. So Demonic is where you use I-Beam and you go into Metaform. It's really, really, really good versus like Rot casters like Warlocks or Shadow Priests, especially if you're playing this Honor talent, Unending Hatred, which we'll go over later. It basically gives you a ton of energy versus casters. So if you're playing this spec, you're basically unkillable. You're a vampire basically, where you will heal constantly because you're playing Soul Rendering. You'll constantly be in demonic form because you're playing demonic, and you'll constantly be resetting your stun because you're also playing demonic appetite, which gives you a soul, which reduces the stun. It's a really fun spec to play. I enjoy it a lot, and you save momentum with this spec too. So it's demonic appetite, Soul Rendering, momentum, and you can go unleash if you want. It would literally be stuns off DR if you're fighting a warlock or a shadow priest, or you can just say bloodlet and this. That's fine, and then demonic. And this spec, basically, you don't really die to rock comps anymore, like wizard rock comps anymore. It's a really fun spec to play. So honor talents, trinket basically always, just in case, just to save your ass pretty much. Reinforced always. So Solitude, Glimpse, and Cover of Darkness. You never go Glimpse, really. It's fucking awkward. Maybe you go Glimpse if you play some awkward prepared spec. You don't do it. Anyway, Solitude is when you have no friends around, basically. You get mad, and you get more Fury generation by 20% and increase your attack speed. Basically, you do more damage if you have no one around you. So you're just kind of pumping damage. You don't really go this too often. It got nerfed a bit ago. It's still good if you know your partner's never going to be around. So maybe in like 2s, if you're playing with like a shaman who's not going to be around you, or a druid or something like that, could be useful there. In 3s, usually all the time you play Cover of Darkness. Is the ability that makes your darkness 50% stronger, which basically makes it a 70% chance that their spells will like miss, just won't do anything. So you know, obviously if you do it like 10% versus a warrior, there's a 30% chance that the warrior will kill the person, but if you do it at like 30% or something, there's like no chance the person will die. So it's kind of like an AoE bubble, but it can fail. Okay, so Unending Hatred, this is the talent I was talking about with the demonic spec. Basically what Unending Hatred is, as you read it, you get a ton of energy anytime you're a victim to magical damage. So if you have VT on you, if you have Shadow Word Pain on you, if you have Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, all these things will give you so much energy where you can't really spend it, and that's where demonic and this demonic spec really strive, because with this demonic appetite you get one back basically. So I'll show. Oh, I can't show you guys. I can show you guys. Let me go to Dal real quick. One sec. Oh yeah, and while you're fel barraging, I guess is a good tip. You can also use your abilities while you're fel barraging, like throw glaive or whatever. You can chaos strike, throw glaive while you're fel barraging. So. I don't know if that's actually intended, but yeah, it works like that. Okay, so what was I going to show you guys? Oh yeah, so there's Demonic Appetite. So you see my 1, it's now Demon's Bite. It's an actual ability. When I go Demon Blades, it's not an actual ability. So when you go Demon Bite, it's an actual ability, and that's how you build your energy, basically, along with Fel Blade. But when you're playing this Unending Hatred spec versus like a Shadow Priest or something like that, you're getting so much energy that you actually don't even need to press 1 anymore. You're just constantly at 100 energy, and this is where it strives, because it basically has no downfall other than giving you soul shards to reduce your stun, just to heal you. It's really good when you can play this spec. When you can play this spec with this, it's really strong. But it's only really strong versus like Dot Cleaves, like Shadow Priest, Warlocks. That's pretty much, you know, that's how you counter those classes, basically. So yeah, you go this anytime you don't need to reverse anything, or anytime you're going to get benefit from it. Like if you're fighting, like, let's say Feral Warrior, right? You can honestly go this and it'll still benefit you a little bit from like Moonfire or something like that. Because you won't be really... This is Reflect Magic. Basically it just reflects like a polymorph or something. I'm sure you've seen this in videos. It reflects polymorphs, it reflects magic buffs. So like Fear, Polymorph, you can reflect them. So if you don't need to reflect, which I'll explain in a second, you always go this, and it might benefit you sometime. So Reverse Magic is your Reflect. It's a 1-minute cooldown. If your partner gets polyed, you can go next to him, you can Fel Rush next to him, and you can hit Reflect. And it'll reflect the poly onto the other guy, or any magical debuffs onto the other guy. Even if you had like VTs, and you don't really want to use it like this, like if you're fighting a Shadow Priest, like I said, probably want to go Demonic. But even if you have like VTs on you and the whole team, you can sit behind the pillar, use it, and it'll put all the it'll remove all the VTs essentially. So it's really good to use versus like mages, hunters, anything that's gonna CC your healer a lot, like indefinitely kind of thing. So yeah, mages, hunters, pretty much it, I guess. You know, like you can go versus warlocks, like, but your priest or your healer shouldn't be getting feared that often unless they have a really good setup. Like versus Rets, it's good sometimes. For Hodges and stuff. So anything that it's kind of for your healer. It's a cooldown for your healer to make sure he's not in CC. So anything you fight that's going to CC your healer with magic, it's good to go that. Other than that, just go this. Eye of Leoth is, or I call it Leoth, it's like Leotheris. Eye of Leotheris is, you put the debuff on somebody, and whenever they cast an offensive ability, I'm pretty sure, like any offensive spell, it does 7% of the damage, but it's dispellable. So in like 99% of games, depending on what your MMR, like, they're going to dispel it instantly. It's almost never worth it. Okay, and then we got Demonic Origins, which is nice because normally your meta is a 4-minute cooldown. Right, 4 minute. Yeah, 3.7. Normally your meta is a. Oh, dude, was this blocked? This was probably blocked, huh? Anyway, Solitude is the thing. It's the thing where if no one's near you, do damage. This is Darkness. Make sure Darkness really strong. Sun-Ending Hatred. This is Reverse Magic. This is Eye of Leo, so you don't go this. Sorry, I don't know if it was blocked or not. I forgot. So normally meta is a 4-minute cooldown, but with this Demonic Origins thing, it turns into a 2-minute cooldown, so it's very nice. It starts pairing with Chaos Blades and a lot nicer. So usually when people are playing Chaos Blades, you know, you pop meta and Chaos Blades and you just do the most damage ever and just crush anything. You basically go this like 99% of games, like 95% of games, I would say, it's just good. It just increases your damage outside of meta and makes your meta like a normal cooldown in PvP. It's like the main one you usually take. Mana Rift is a fucking kinky ass talent. Like, you never really take this unless like unless you've gone through a lot of strats and you realize the only way to win is by ooming the person, or like if that's the best strat. Basically it makes your meta 4 minutes again, and you can put this thing under the healer or under anyone and it'll take their health and life away, but it takes like 2 seconds to like, you know, activate. So usually never really go this. You don't. If you're just like a casual player, just don't go. Just say Demonic Origins. It's really specific scenarios to go this. I've gone it like once or twice. Like Awaken the Demon. This is the all-in. Okay, so if you're playing like, if you're literally playing a 30-second game where like you just feel like you can't win any other way, you're just going all in. There's a fucking shaman on the team. You just want to kill the blue. You know, you can go when you go Nemesis here. You could go Awaken the Demon, and basically it'll make your meta last 30 seconds, and if you get below 50%, it'll proc like a little baby meta. But honestly, if that's procking, you've probably already lost the game. So basically it makes your meta 30 seconds long, which lets you pound, especially with Nemesis. You're just a meta the whole time Nemesis is up. This is versus like things that you just want to kill instantly. Like, you either kill or be killed in a minute or something like that, or you do no damage after that minute. So this is a very YOLO talent that you don't really want to go too often. That's that 5% talent that you're fighting jungle and you're running at the disc or something where, like, you know, you don't know what else you can do really. So mostly Demonic Origins here. And when you're running that, you also want to go Chaos Blades. You just want to do the most damage ever when you're Awake the Demon. Just want to do the most damage ever. Alright, last talent, Rain from Above, Detainment, and Mana Break. Rain from Above is a really cool ability. I can't use it here because I'm not in PvP. But basically, it lets you go... basically, like, pretend I'm right here, right? You go flying in the air, and you start, like, shooting, like, chaos fucking fire bolts off on people. It's good for, like, avoiding setups, avoiding damage, but you can actually get fucked in it. So, be careful if you're fighting, like, a hunter or a mage or, like, a caster, basically, who can like shoot you down in the air, because you'll be flying in here and you'll slowly descend, and you can keep fighting, keep shooting stuff, and then you're back on the ground. So sometimes people can actually kill you when you're in the air, so it's kind of sketchy sometimes, but it's really good. For example, for like when you're fighting like rogue mage, you always want, like, when you see your healer get kidneyed, you always want to pre-blur or pre-nether or pre-fly. Basically, you want to use something before when they stun the healer. You want to use something so you don't get stunned, so they don't have a perfect setup. So it's a good. You can use it like, you can use it wisely, basically. Use it to like avoid setups or avoid damage, or, but yeah, like I said, be careful of like hunters especially, they'll just shoot you down. Detainment, this is the ability that makes your imprison last longer. And it makes it last, what is it, I'm pretty sure it's like 5 seconds. It's, increase it by 1, okay, let's see. Okay, well it doesn't say because we're not in PvP. Basically, it's your detainment or whatever, your incap. It lasts 4 seconds. It's 3 to 4. Okay, so it makes it last 3 to 4 seconds, or 5 seconds. One of the two. I honestly don't go it too often. I guess it really depends on what comp you're playing to go it. I'll explain comps after this, and fly like Rain from Above is pretty safe, and you have consistent incaps, which even though they're spellable, it can still be really annoying for the healer. This makes it like is it 45 second damage? It makes a 45 second cooldown. I didn't even know that was 30. Okay, it got nerfed a little bit ago. I forgot, but it's good for like, it's like you can picture it like as a clone, maybe like a 45 second clone. It's good, but it's not like super consistent, you know. So consistently wise, I like to go Rain from Above, so I can just have the small dispellable incap that I can kind of spam off DR on the healer kind of thing, you know. So you go this like sometimes, let's say probably like maybe it's like 70-30 with Rain from Above, like 70% Rain from Above, like 30% this. It really depends. You'd have to play the comp out and see how you like it, and see how your teammates like it and stuff like that. Yeah, it's instant clone on 45 second cooldown. That's exactly what it is, Nelson. It's exactly. Sup, Shin? Oh yeah, okay. So one big thing is that's true for a good catch on Holy Priest. So you can clone the Ray. We'll just call it clone. You can clone like like Ray of Hope, how it builds up the healing and then it, explodes it. You can use that on like Ray of Hope to prevent that, and it has some cool uses. Basically, just think of it as clone. You can kind of fuck someone with it. Like you can clone someone low, but it's a long cooldown. So. Mana Break, you don't really use this anymore. It got nerfed really, really hard a long time ago. Basically, the lower mana they have, the more damage this ability will do. If they have 0% mana, you'll probably hit for like probably about like 1,000,000 if they have absolutely 0% mana. But it's gonna be really like shitty until you really get the moon. So if you're playing a matchup where you know it goes heavy dampening and you win from them being might be worth it. I really never really go it, so. Okay, so those are the talents. Alright, comps. We'll go over comps, okay? So my favorite comp as a DH, personally, is DH Warrior. It's a cleave. Usually it's played with a Resto Shaman or a Resto Druid. The goal of it, as a cleave, usually you're running at one guy the whole time and eventually winning from just damage, Stormbolt, Incap. It's a really strong comp, kind of. With Shamans, I'm pretty sure you play more aggressively. Like, you kind of want to purge stuff down. You kind of just want to run a team over almost. With this comp, you usually run Fel Barrage a lot of the time. I'd say most of the time you run Fel Barrage. Maybe if you're fighting like a Wizard Cleave, like Shadow Priest Cleave or Lock Cleave, you can go the Demonic spec here. But usually you're running something along the lines of like, one of these and just Fel Barrage. Usually you're running this, or if you're really going for the one-shots, which like, it's okay with this comp, but the more consistent damage, especially because you're playing with a warrior, is nice from Fel Barrage, and it's a different kind of damage. It's a magic damage, so it's nice to have that. And momentum, because you're not really one-shotting with this comp. You are one-shotting, but you're constantly one-shotting, So the warrior really brings a lot of damage, a lot of utility to that comp, like Mortal Strike especially. Honor talents wise, Strong Darkness, because your warrior is usually going to be with you most of the time. There's some strats where you split, but it's not super often where you can go Solitude. Most of the time you can just go Cover of Darkness, just use it as a big defensive. Reverse, these talents kind of matter just what you're fighting against. Doesn't matter what comp you're playing, it just kind of matters what you're fighting against. So as DH Warrior, if you're fighting a mage, you want to go Reflect. If you're not fighting a mage, you're fighting a Shadow Priest or something like that, you want to go this. Pretty much always Demonic Origins, because it's not like it's a one-shot comp, it's a constant one-shot comp, so you constantly want to do damage. You want to meta every 2 minutes, it's good. I like playing Short Incap with this comp, just because, like I said, you have constant good damage. So every Incap almost forces a cooldown, even though it's small, it'll force something for the most part. Or every couple setup for Incap, you'll get some cooldowns for sure. Just with the raw damage of DH Warrior. It's really good against like lock teams, pretty good against Shadow Priest teams, even though Shadow Priest, there's some comps with Shadow Priest that can definitely overwhelm it. I like it really overall. It's the comp I've played most with DH, I think, or most as of recently with DH. It's a good cleave. It's a fun, good DH cleave. Alright, next for a comp, DH Boomy. Now, this is a comp I used to play a lot, especially with the boy floor mat back in the day, and Sam, I think. I think we played this a good amount with Sam, too, when I was back on Method. This comp's really, really fun. It's really, really setup-based. It's basically like you're playing like Feral Mage or something like that. It feels really fun when it's actually done really right. So Boomkins have Root Beam. So basically your main setup is Root Beam, Stun DPS, unless you're going healer, Stun DPS, Burst DPS, Clone out of the Root Beam, Incap out of the Root Beam, anything out of the Root Beam, Hex out of the Root Beam. Basically, every beam is a cooldown, basically. So if you have clean setups with this, sometimes you can even play Chaos Blades, and every 2 setups, so every 2 beams, will force a major cooldown. So I do like playing with Chaos Blades. Not Nemesis, though, because you also want to do constant damage with this comp. But every 2 minutes, basically, you would beam, we'd stun, we'd burst Chaos Blades meta, the 2-minute cooldowns, we'd get a cooldown, and then you can just reset if you're in trouble. You can just run away. Next Root Beam is like the baby Root Beam without Chaos Blades. Maybe force a cooldown, maybe not. Cooldown after that, you do a Root Beam again, you pop your cooldowns again, force another cooldown. So especially versus like Rets or something like that, if you're playing this one-shot spec, they're almost guaranteed dead in like 2 or 3 cooldowns if you do it properly. It's a really, really fun comp to play. It's just a really fun comp to play. With this comp, same thing here applies here. If it's a mage or something, you want to play reverse for a shaman, or if it's just, you're going to get a lot of energy off it, if it's worth for you to play the Unending Hatred, play Unending Hatred. Talents kind of don't matter with this. You can either go soft incap or strong incap. Soft is probably better just for like more consistent CC. I could see strong, but I would like soft incap or rain from above with it for the most part. You could go Solitude, but not really worth it. It's good to have another defensive for your team, so when you're on the back foot, because you do win in setup, so you don't want to lose in between your setups, so it's a very setup-based comp. It's really fun to play. I would recommend it if you know a Boomy, and just try, if you do know a Boomy, every beam, you stun the other guys, and you follow it up with CC, you get a cooldown. It's really fun. After that, there's DH Lock, also a really fun cooldown. I used to play this way back in the day. Basically the same concept as Boomy, except you don't have Root Beam. You have like Fel Lord goes, and like Fear goes, Incap Fear, Incap Head, like it's basically the same thing. Sometimes you can play with a Resto Druid, sometimes a Shaman. It's a fun wizard setup based comp still. Like, make sure you use your stun when you're, Warlock's Fel Lording, or stun the healer in line and kind of synergize like that and hit the same target. It's a really fun, it kind of rots everything. Really fun comp. I would not go Chaos Blades with it. I'd probably go Fel Barrage at this point and just do a lot of constant burst, just constant damage all the time. Really fun comp. I don't know the exact strats of it. Like, I haven't played it for a while now, but it is a good comp if you get used to it and if you get synergy with your Warlock. Then there's Double DH, the Colo Classic. Double DH really excels against wizards, especially Warlock, Shadow Priest, just because of this let me make sure you guys can see it. Just because of this demonic build, basically. Basically, you both turn into vampires and you both can't die. And if you're playing with a druid, the most dampening healer in the game, he can't die. It's really, 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 really strong versus like Rot. Any Rot team, any Cloth team that will give you the energy with Unending Hatred. It's really strong, especially when you're both vampires. It's really hard to kill you guys at that point. Overall, it's a pretty strong comp. I think it'll get pretty fucked by a decent amount of comps nowadays, especially comps that don't rot. Like Rogue Mage should just own it almost. It's like free setups half the time for him. But yeah, as a Demoner, you're pretty squishy unless you pre-blurred or something like that. So it's really strong for Shadow Priests, Warlocks, Rot stuff, where you can really abuse Demonic. Then there's Windwalker DH, basically another DH cleave. You don't really go short stun as you do with the next comp is DK DH, which you would go short stun, but as Windwalker DH, you more just kind of do damage and burst. Basically like your Windwalker DK, like you do a setup, Mug stuns him, you burst into it. You use Fel Barrage usually, and just you know, play it smart. Like, you get skin, you go back him, you get trinket or something like that, and then you kill next or something. It's all about setups. It's basically just like Windwalker DK, except no grip. You know, you just incap the healer, go on DP, double stun DPS, do a lot of damage to DPS. You know, maybe go healer out of that, freak him out, kind of ride the pressure kind of comp. Pretty good. It's a pretty good comp, pretty strong comp. And there's DKDH, which is the comp that you probably go Unleash Power because you want a short stun. And you kind of want to treat it like you're playing Windwalker DK, where the DK will grip something in, and as the Windwalker, you would leg sweep it. So you grip something in, and you want to Chaos Nova it. And this makes it so it's more consistent Chaos Nova, because without this talent, the Chaos Nova would be like 45-50 seconds usually. And with this talent, it would be like 30 seconds usually. So you can almost do it like off DR. So it basically turns Windwalker DH into like it basically turns DK Windwalker into like DH Windwalker. Yeah, or what the fuck am I saying? Into Windwalker DK? It's basically Windwalker DK because you're gripping and stunning and doing a lot of damage. But Windwalker DK is probably better for the most part versus a lot of stuff. Maybe if you're fighting like a Rock Cleave or something, maybe this with like Demonic would be better than Windwalker DK. But it basically goes off the same concept. Grip, stun, do damage, hit an aware shield, do the most damage you can, and keep doing it. These same talents kind of apply. You probably won't go Solitude because you'll be with your DK. Reverse Magic if you're doing Mage or something like that. Unending Hatred if you're going to get a lot of benefit from it. Stay 2-minute meta for the most part. You can do all-ins though. You can go like... You can rush down healers, especially if you're like Unholy or something like that. You can like rush down healers. I would stay soft in cap probably. Just so you could soft incap into grip, into stun, stuff like that. A little more CC consistently. So those comps I would recommend. I can't really think of more off the top of my head here, but those are some good comps to play and fight. Do you like being a demon bean? Oh, I love it, T-Dog. I love it. I love being a vampire. When I'm playing the vampire spec, ooh, it's very fun. Alright, so strengths and weaknesses to Demon Hunters. Demon Hunters are very mobile, so we'll start with their strengths. They're very mobile, so it's really hard to just continuously stay on a Demon Hunter. They have a lot of cooldowns that can really prevent them from dying, especially like blur, like pre-blurring. Let's just put, for example, as Rogue Mage, versus Rogue Mage. You're very mobile, so if you see the Rogue step for a kidney, you can just go the other way and he probably won't be able to get back to you. If you see him step for a kidney, you can just hit pre-blur because it's a 1-minute cooldown. It'll save you 100% if they're going you. You can also fly in the air beforehand. There's a lot of stuff you can pre-do as a Demon Hunter so you don't die. Like Nether Walk 2, for example, the thing that makes you go immune here. I'll show you how it works. It just makes you go immune like this. There's a lot of abilities that you can pre-do to prevent yourself from dying. Along with your mobility, if you are low, you have a lot of kite potential. Especially with this, when it slows, with Vengeful Retreat slows an enemy, you can kind of get away from like that and then Fell Rush even further. You have a lot of mobility, and that also helps offensively too, especially with Fellblade, is you basically will always be on your target almost. You're one of the only classes you can keep up to an Arcane Mage. So offensively and defensively, the mobility is really, really strong. Your cooldowns in general, your defensive cooldowns are really, really strong. Like Blur being on a 1-minute cooldown is really strong. So yeah, it's a pretty... I'd say it's kind of a forgiving class. With the cooldowns being really short, like Blur. But you are very squishy since you are leather, so if you don't pre-blur this stuff, or you're constantly getting caught in setups and not avoiding any, you will die really quick. They're relatively squishy. As a Feral main, I can really, really hurt Demon Hunters a lot of the time. So you are a squishy class, but you just have to use your mobility to an advantage, basically. Your mobility and short cooldowns to an advantage. Weaknesses, like I said, they're really squishy if you don't pre-do stuff, if you don't pre-blur, or if you're just sitting there taking damage and just using your mobility for offensive, you definitely take the dick. So yeah, your weaknesses are that you're squishy, basically. You have good defensives, you have pretty good offensives. Weakness would probably be your squishy, and you have one stun, I guess. You just have that one dispellable AoE stun. I guess the weakness is that your stun is dispellable, for sure. Other than that, I mean, they're pretty strong, honestly. They're not the best class, but just their toolkit in general is pretty strong. Their mobility is really high. Their damage is pretty fucking high. Maybe not as much as like a Feral's right now, but they definitely work in a lot of comps. They do pump the damage. They do pump burst more than consistent damage. You definitely do that short, consistent burst a lot of times, especially with Fel Barrage. What's up, Phoenix? So yeah, that's basically their weaknesses. They're kind of squishy, you know, and if you get caught out without using pre-stuff, then you definitely can die. Yeah. Okay, my macros. I don't have a lot of macros, or I have the regular macros. So this is Focus Fellblade. I've actually never used this in my life. You don't really need it, so don't worry about that. Focus Imprison, which is good. It's your Focus Incap. You can use that. Focus Kick. Throw-Glaive 1, 2, 3. So this is for, like, basically if I want to slow someone, if, you know, a warrior's chasing my shaman and we're, like, on the warlock or something like that, and I'm playing, you know, the slow glaive, the Master of Glaives. Or let me make sure you guys can see my macros. If I'm playing Master of Glaive or whatever, where I have 2 glaives and it's slowing people, you know, you can toss like a throw glaive pretty easily. I'm really used to 1, 2, 3s, so this isn't necessary, but it's just like how I play. It's just my comfort. So this is just 1, 2, 3 throw glaive. Other than this is kick 1, 2, 3. Kick 1, 2, 3. Don't know what this is. You don't need that. This is that's some prot Demon Hunter. Don't do that. This is Incap 1, 2, 3. Nothing crazy. Pretty much just focus or 1, 2, 3s. This isn't a real macro. I don't know why I clicked it. It just does nothing. It's just Chaos Strike. You can see on my bars. I just have regular Chaos Strike. So this is an at cursor meta. So basically, when you meta, you'll see this little green. Hey, let me click it here. You'll see this like little green circle. You see that? With this cursor, it'll just go to where your cursor is. You'll just click it, and it'll just go to where your cursor is. I do recommend using this. It's really comfortable. You know what? It really fits the class fantasy. You know, not having to fucking point a circle and metaing, just metaing where you want instantly. You know, it's really nice. That's the only macro I'd really recommend. Other than that, you don't need any macros really. Just focus and that's it. Your stun's an AoE. You don't need focus stun or anything like that. Then I have like a Nemesis macro. I don't even know what the fuck's it called. DH and Nem. Let's see if we can find this. So this kind of macro is really nice on any character you have. Basically, you can replace the talent 5-1 for like talent 4-1. This means the column. This means the column, the first number is the column, like, going vertically. And then this one's the row, right? The row's horizontal, right? So this one's the row. So, basically, so 5-1 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1 would be momentum. See, if I go this, you can see it over here, it'll change. It'll show whatever Fel Eruption. And if I go Nemesis, it'll show Nemesis. So, it's a really nice macro to have, just constantly being able to change your spec without having to put buttons on your bars. So that's kind of a nice macro to have. And win conditions as a Demon Hunter. So win conditions, it's different on the comp you play. I guess I kind of already explained it, but I'll go over it quickly with the comps. So DH Warrior, your win condition is constant damage, constantly doing those mini CCs, those kicks on healer, those incaps on healer, just constantly being annoying to the healer and just pumping into your main target. If you're fighting like a shaman, the win conditions a lot of the time is like swapping on Earth Shield, or you can sick whoever's not getting attacked on the shaman, the other guy who's getting attacked can sit safe and hit DPS. That works sometimes and kind of connect with stuns on no Earth Shield. But for the most part, it's just small CCs on the healer and just doing the most damage you can. It seems pretty stupid, but it's fun. It's really fun to play that comp. Winning like that is sometimes really satisfying, where you're just especially when you're hitting like a warlock, for example, is like the perfect thing to fight when you're playing DH Warrior. You're just pounding them the whole time. It feels really good. As DH Boomy, your win condition is setups, so you want a root beam, then you want a double stun, do your burst, get a cooldown, and rinse and repeat every root beam. Basically, you want to follow up your root beam with CC, and you'll force, you know, if they don't stop the CC, you'll force more and more cooldowns. You can really start like steamrolling the cooldowns really quick if they don't stop proper CC. fuck you, Mac. So DH Lock, potentially the same thing as DH Boomy if you can get fears and stuff. If you're straight CCing the healer, that's fine. If you're not CCing the healer, your win conditions are going to be like Stun, Fel Lord, like the big setups with Stun, Fel Lord, your cooldowns, and anything on healer. If you're going healer, making sure, you know, one of the DPS stacks with you so you get a double stun, just cleaving everything. It's just kind of rotting everything in a way. And you can choose the CC healer, you know, with fears, incap, fear, stun, you know, depending on what classes you're playing with. Double DH, your win condition is... I mean, a lot of win conditions with DH are just damage. Like, damage in really small CCs. Especially for these cleaves. So, as double DH, your win condition... You know, if you're fighting like a Warlock, it's just... You're hitting them, you're not dying, you're constantly hitting things. You're just doing damage. Eventually, the other team just can't keep up. You're just doing too much damage, and you're healing too much, so you're unkillable. And eventually you just win from like stuns or incaps or just pure damage. It's basically the same as DH Warrior. But you don't have MS. So you're more about living, because that comes more about versing Warlocks or versing things that'll feed you energy to where you can play Demonic and you can just not die. So basically just damage. Windwalker DH and Windwalker DK, they're kind of similar. You win with setups, with stuns. With Windwalker DH, you know, it's obviously their stuns a lot of the time. Like, for example, you know, you can vice versa this, but for example, he can double leg sweep DPS and you can incap the healer and you can go Chaos Nova the healer just for CC and come back and hit that guy, you know? So you win from like these small little incap goes, like any Windwalker melee comp wins with his incap, stun DPS, or, you know, stun healer, and killing the stun, basically.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, dude. I'm about to finish the guide, bros. This is the last part of the guide, bro. Your things do. Alright, and the last comp would be like DHDK, which your win condition would basically be like you're playing this short stun. So you're playing the short stun, and you're gripping them in, and you're stunning them off cooldown. Basically the same as like any Windwalker cleave, where you're gripping them in, stunning them, doing damage, bursting, and owning. Yeah, it's basically 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's what I'm trying to explain. You don't go with the Demon Blade, you got one button, you know what I mean? But, you know, as DHDK, you're just gripping, stunning, doing damage, and winning with damage and setups. Basically like every comp as a DH. So, you know, boys, that's the end of the guide here, unless you guys got any questions about Demon Hunter. That's basically the guide right there. It literally just ended, so, you know, welcome to the ending. But yeah, most of the win conditions with Demon Hunter are just damage, dude. Just raw damage, just small CCs and raw damage. And, you know, some setups. And that's how you play DH. Playing Frosty K DH with my friend, what heal should